Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be my Q&A for my celebration of reaching 500 subscribers a couple of weeks ago. I am super excited about this. This is obviously a pretty big milestone for my channel, and I am just absolutely pumped that I got to share this with you guys. I already announced the winner of the giveaway over on my Twitter. I think I also put it in my Instagram stories and on the community tab, so if you haven't checked any of those to see if you won, go ahead and do so and then send me a DM. But without any further ado, I guess let's just jump right into the questions because there's a bunch of them, so this is going to take a little while. Do you have a book that you know you're going to like and everything about it is right up your alley, but somehow you just keep putting off reading it? There are a lot of books that fall into this category. Rhythm of War is one because, I don't know, I just kind of don't want what's left of the Cosmere as of right now to end. And it's also really long. So I know that I want to read it, I know that I'm going to enjoy it, but it's not a thing that I have picked up, and it's probably been 6 months since I finished Oathbringer. Another thing in that exact category is the next Faithful and the Fallen book. I've read Malice, I've read, what is it? Valor? I read Malice and Valor. I am on Ruin, I think is book 3. I know it's gonna destroy me. Haven't picked it up yet. Let's see. A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. Science-y, fantasy, history, right up my alley. Haven't picked it up yet. Yeah, there's a lot that go under this category. Pretty much most of the books that I have yet to read that I've already started series for. Any of those. What are your favorite hobbies besides reading? I am a serial hobbyist, and by that I mean I tend to pick up hobbies. I don't know how to describe this. I think that a lot of people are like this though. I tend to pick up hobbies and I get very obsessed with them for a short period of time, and then they just kind of go into a closet and collect dust. Any kind of like yarn craft, so I do crocheting and I do knitting primarily. Those I tend to kind of come back to every winter. It's just like a wintry thing that I like to do, and I can listen to an audiobook and I can be under a blanket and I can just work on that kind of stuff without like focusing on it. Let's see. I've picked up, in the past, I have picked up, what is it, paint by stickers. I've done paint by numbers. I've done diamond painting. I've never actually finished one, but I do have one that has been rolled up for about a year now. Yeah, video games. I like playing video games, but it's a thing that like I have to be in the mood for, so I'll like play a lot, and then I won't touch it for like 6 months, and then I'll play a lot, and then it's just a cycle. So yeah, serial hobbyist, that's me. What would be your perfect vacation? Honestly, I'm torn. I have always wanted to go to Scotland and Ireland and just do like a big old country tour of all of the entire UK and just see all of the history that's there. But I love a good beach. And honestly, some of my favorite vacations ever have been on the beach. So I'd be pretty torn between those two things if I were to choose one. Right now, I think I would say trip to the UK just because that's something that I've never done before, but pretty much any other time, reading a good book on the beach. Okay, if you won $1 million, what would be the first fun thing you would buy and the first practical thing you would buy? The first fun thing that I would buy, this is hard because can I answer books? Is that the obvious answer? I would buy a lot of books. I would buy a lot of books, and I would probably spend the money on like a home theater system because I'm also a very big like movie TV watcher. Yeah, probably something like that. But the practical side of that is that our house is currently not big enough to fit that. So a bigger house, I guess, that would fit that, and a full-on like Beauty and the Beast library, I guess, would be the practical side of things, because then I would need something to put all of that stuff in. So that's probably an expected answer for a booktuber, but it's fine. If you could spend the day with any author, who would it be? This is hard. There's a lot of authors that I really respect, but I don't know if I would like to spend time with them in person. Like an entire day with, I mean, I don't know. Let's see. I would say I have met Kevin Hearn in person. I think that he is a delightful human being. I think that he would be really fun to talk writing and just literature and like all of that fun stuff with. I recently met Cinda Williams Chima in person. She seems delightful. My problem is I'm awkward, so spending an entire day with somebody that I really like because I've read their books but I don't know would mostly result in me just kind of silently fangirling in a corner and freaking them out. So yeah, I don't know. Do I get to bring a buddy, like an extroverted buddy? Because I think I would need that also. Tamara Pierce is on that list also. I've watched Sarah J. Maas and her husband in a couple of their live shows, and frankly, I think that she would be entertaining to get drunk with, so that's an option also. Just pretty much any of my favorite authors, I guess. Brandon Sanderson, I don't know. He would be fun to just ask questions about what he has planned for the Cosmere, but I don't know if that, I could probably make that take an entire day. If you were given the task to create a movie or TV series for your favorite book, what would it be? Okay, so this entire shelf, like right here, all the way across, is full of my favorites. So lots of people want Cosmere related movie or TV shows. Who knows if we're going to get that, who knows if we're going to enjoy that. But, you know, I think that would be a lot of fun. But what I would be most excited for in terms of an adaptation would be anything in the Tortall universe. Like, I'm a big Tamara Pierce fan. I've been reading them since I was in elementary school, and so seeing Tortall adapted onto any kind of screen would be, as long as it was done well, and if I were the one doing it, I would try to, you know, do it justice. I would say that that would be it. I don't know. Maybe a better adaptation of The Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Paolini. You can't see it, it's off screen over there, but that movie doesn't deserve to exist, so that needs to be redone badly. What's the book character that you identify with the most and why? This is hard. Most of my favorite, like, badass heroine book characters are just that, badass heroines. I don't generally see myself in that light, honestly, so I don't know that I would, like, really identify with any of them, but I think we're gonna have to revisit the Tortall universe and go with Dane, because Dane has always been one of my favorite characters growing up. She loves animals because that is the majority of what her magic is. It gives her a connection to animals. It's called wild magic. She can talk to them. She can heal them. She can turn into them eventually. Spoilers, I guess. She's always, like, I've always related to her super hard, even though, like, technically our histories don't have anything to do with each other, but, like, the way that she connects to animals, I definitely relate to that. I don't know. I don't really relate to, like, Feyre or Selena or any of them. Yeah, I think my best answer is gonna be Dane. What do you do when you find yourself in a reading slump? Well, I don't follow my own advice when I find myself in a reading slump. So when other people ask what to do if they're in a reading slump, I generally say, give yourself a break, do what you want to do, mood read, play video games, watch TV, don't force yourself to read if you don't want to read, but if you are going to force yourself to read, try rereading an old favorite, or switching genres, or something like that. A lot of times I just push myself into reading what I'm not currently feeling, and it drives me even further into a slump. If the book that I'm currently reading is forcing me into a slump, I have, painfully, I'm not a good DNFer, but I have DNF'd a book because it was putting me into a reading slump. I do occasionally try switching up genres if I'm reading fantasy and I'm getting a fantasy burnout. I can switch to romance or sci-fi or whatever. Yeah, that's pretty much it. If I don't find myself wanting to read anything at all and I just want to, like, binge watch something on TV, I let myself binge watch something on TV. It's something that I found out since I've been on Booktube has been, like, I don't know, it gives you a lot of pressure to read all the time, and a lot of times that leads you into a burnout or a slump. I know a lot of people on Booktube feel the same way. I know a lot of people don't, and that's okay. But, like, the pressure of trying to read so many things every single month, it does catch up to you, and I have tried lately to be a little bit more forgiving with myself about if I don't finish as many books as I expect to in a given month, then I let that happen, and I just read what I want to read at the pace that I want to read it, and that's that. That leads into the next question. Have you ever forced yourself to read a book that you disliked instead of DNFing? Yes. I am a serial non-DNFer. I am awful at, like, DNFing, mostly because I've read several books that if I get myself to that 75% mark, all of a sudden something, like, action-y starts happening, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty good, even though I haven't really been enjoying it for the first 75% of that book. But the chance of that happening makes me want to finish it. So yes, I have a very hard time DNFing books, and if it is something that I've not been able to pick up for days at a time because it's not something that's been interesting me, then a lot of times I'll just start skimming until the end to see if anything picks up, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't. I think 2 books I've DNF'd this year. And even then, 1 is for sure I'm not picking it back up again. I skimmed all the way to the end and I did not really feel like I cared about it at all. 1, I just couldn't read through it and I don't know why. I think I'll pick it back up again in the future. It's just not for me right now. What do you like the most about the YouTube community? I'm gonna talk about the Booktube community because that's the only one that I really know. I just like that there is a group of people that is out there that is just as nerdy about reading as I am. Growing up, I wasn't like really made fun of for reading a lot, or I don't know if they were actually serious about making fun of me. I'm more like I took it as a joke instead. But I don't know, the people have always made comments about how much I read, and so I always felt like it was like a weird thing for me to read as much as I did until I got older and I stopped caring. But then shortly after that, I found out about Booktube and the entire online bookish community, and there's a lot of us out there, guys, and we are awesome. So yeah, I think I just like how even though we don't all read the same stuff, we're pretty similar in terms of like how we act about other people reading for the most part. And I like that. I like that it's mostly a welcoming community. I like that people are just excited to talk about their favorite books with other people that like those same things. And yeah, it's a pretty cool community on here. What is your most recent 5-star read currently? I'm gonna have to look that one up, honestly. Let's see. So my most recent 5-star read was Iron Widow. I can pop a picture of it over here. I got an arc of it off of NetGalley. I didn't actually get around to reading it until it had already come out, but I really, really, really loved it. I loved the storyline. The entire premise was so unique. It was, you know, like Eastern Asian culture meets what's the movie? Pacific Rim. And that is just so cool. And the main character was, you know, vengeful, but she wasn't like vengeful to the point of like exclusion of all else that mattered. And I really, really, really enjoyed that. It was just so good. If you haven't checked out Iron Widow, go and pick up Iron Widow and give it a shot because it was awesome from beginning to end. There was all sorts of LGBTQ rep in there. It was great. What was your favorite book that you read last year? Oh, what did I say? I think I made an end of the year video, and I want to say that I said that it was, oh, it's out of frame, Ink and Sigil by Kevin Hearn, because I think that was my top book of last year. It was his new spin-off series that spins off of the Iron Druid Chronicles, and it was so much fun. I definitely gave it 5 stars. The characters in it were awesome, the storyline was awesome, the magic was awesome. It was just great to revisit that world and feel familiar, and I just love everything that Kevin Hearn has written, guys, so Ink and Sigil, go check it out. What are your top 3 favorite go-to genres that you read? Fantasy, sci-fi, and romance. Don't even have to think about it. Those are my top 3, and pretty much the only 3 that I read. I don't really stray out of those 3. Any combination of them I really tend to enjoy as well. But yeah, everything pretty much that you can see on the screen right now is fantasy. My sci-fi is on the shelf up above and a little bit out of view, but yeah, fantasy, sci-fi, and romance. What is your most anticipated book releasing in 2022? I just talked about how I just met Cinda Williams-Chima recently, and she was at a big event at a local indie bookstore that I have nearby me. They were doing a bunch of author signings and she was there, and I took my Seven Realms and my Shattered Realms books to go and get signed. And while I was there, she announced that she's actually writing a Norse mythology inspired new series coming out in the fall of 2022. This is the first time that she has announced it. I will probably talk more about it in a different video because I didn't really plan on mentioning that here. I didn't know that question was coming out. So, yeah, that, because I've read everything that Cinda Williams-Chima has ever written. I mean, outside of these last 2 books in this series. But I love her as an author, and I love the stories that she comes up with, so I'm very excited to see what she's going to do next. Which 3 books do you wish you could read for the first time again? Ooh. This is like asking what my favorites are, because that's pretty much what it would be. Let's see. I would probably say either the Immortal series or the Lioness series by Tamara Pierce, because I read them when I was so little that and they stuck with me, so even when I reread them as an adult, I knew what was coming and I knew that I was going to enjoy it. But I have a better grasp, obviously, now of everything that she wrote in those stories. So yeah, I think that it would be something by Tamara Pierce. If you could meet any person, living or dead, who would it be and why? There's like a lot of people that I would love to meet. I don't know if there's one person that I would really choose more than like anybody else ever. I have been saying recently, specifically to John, that if I ever met Nathan Fillion, like, I would probably die. So that's pretty far up there on that list. I would love to meet Nathan Fillion. I'd love to meet the cast of Supernatural. I love Supernatural. Yeah, I guess some of my favorite TV show characters. That would be pretty awesome. I don't really have anybody that's dead that I would really want to meet more than anybody else. I don't know. I have to be completely honest and say that I don't actually know what this question is saying, and I'm so sorry. I don't know if I'm a fake booktuber and I just don't know what these abbreviations mean. But the question is, if you had the chance to pick to become the SC in your favorite book, have the possibility to die and fade from the background, or be the FL of your least liked book. If you guys know what this question is asking me, please tell me, because I feel like a fake booktuber if I don't know what these abbreviations are. So, I don't know what that means. A person that is deceased, I think, that you'd like to have a conversation with for 10 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer to this. There's nobody that's like dead that I would like really want to have a conversation with that pops to my mind more than anybody else. Maybe I'll think of one when I'm not on the spot, but right now I don't have anything. Cat or dog? If you're asking me if I would rather be a cat or be a dog, I would rather be a dog. If you are asking me whether I would rather own a cat or own a dog, I don't have an answer to that either, because I own both and I love both. And Ember's right here, and if I said dog, she would probably come over and claw me on the foot. So we're just not going to answer that question. If you could time travel to 5 years from now, would you do it? I don't think so. I don't think 5 years, like, enough of it would change for me to, like, want to. If it was, like, 50 years from now to see what has changed, maybe. I just don't think that there's going to be enough progress in 5 years for that to be worth it, for me to just see, like, what's going on. So maybe if it was 50, or, like, I don't know, 500 or something significant like that. But 5 is too small for me to risk, I don't know, time travel for. A book world that you would want to live in. This is hard because all of the book worlds that I read about are generally not great places to live. Like Mistborn, really cool magic system, terrible place to live. Same with Stormlight, like any of the Roshar, no thanks. Iron Druid Chronicles is urban fantasy, so that's just this world, but with magic. Maybe Tortall. I mean, Tortall's got, like, some golden eras. It's not all bad all the time. I think Tortall would probably be my most likely to survive and enjoy bet. There's cool magic going on there, but, like, people aren't dying constantly all the time, so yeah, I think Tortall would be my best bet. Would you rather have a book end with a cliffhanger or a book end with a sad ending? If you watched one of my recent vlogs, particularly in which I talked about The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik, I despise cliffhangers. I despise cliffhangers more than anything else in the entire world. I don't like them. So, book with a sad ending, I think that I would take... Okay, wait, we gotta back up. If I read the book with the cliffhanger before the next book comes out, then I don't want it. I would pick the book with a sad ending. But I don't really like sad endings either. I prefer my things to be wrapped up happily. So if it's a book with a sad ending, and that's the end of the series, and that's it, there's no more, versus a book with a cliffhanger where things have a potential to be wrapped up in a future book, and I just haven't read it yet, I think we'll go with that book with the cliffhanger, because I really don't like it when people are sad in the end of my book. That's why I like romance so much. Reading challenge for next year. Like one that I set for myself? I don't know, I set like the Goodreads challenge to 100 this year. That was, turns out, a bit of an overestimation of my abilities. We may hit it, we may not hit it. I might have to read a lot of short stories and graphic novels in order for me to actually hit that goal. I think I'm something like 8 books behind on my goal for that, so, and it's November, so there's not much time for me to catch up, but, yeah, I guess maybe the same, maybe 100 books for next year, too. I'm not big on reading challenges. If you watch my channel for a while, you would know that, like, anytime I tend to set a challenge for myself, or a TBR for myself, it just kind of makes me not want to do it. So I gotta trick my mind around that a lot of the time. My favorite book cover. They're behind me and I'm literally too lazy to pick them off of the shelf, but either Crescent City, which I'll pop up, the ones that I'm talking about. Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, because the cover is absolutely beautiful, and no matter what you think about her or her stories, like, you gotta admit that this cover art is gorgeous. Or Ink and Sigil by Kevin Hearn. It's equally beautiful. The chalky, like, line drawing on it just draws the eye, and the colors, they just pop. They're gorgeous, and I just love these covers so much. And if you read the book, you'll see that it really, like, tells you a lot about the story as well, and I love that. Paperback or Kindle? This is situational for me. I love the feeling of a good paperback in my hands. However, I do a lot of my reading on the go or like laying in bed with the lights off, so Kindle does tend to be more convenient for me, especially lately. I just haven't like had the energy to pick up physical books a lot for the last couple of months, and so a lot of my reading has been audibly and on Kindle, which is fine. Even if I have a physical copy of it, I might try and find like an ebook from my library or something just so I can continue reading it on the go. But I do love paperbacks. Obviously, I love the physical book as well, so yeah, I guess it's situational. A genre that you want to try to read. I would like to get more into, not literary fiction, that's not really my jam, but like mysteries. Like, I don't know. I do like procedural stuff on TV, and I do like procedural stuff in my books as well, but mostly when it comes to like romances. Like, I've read a lot of procedural romances where they just have a different couple get together in every one. But I do like the mysteries that are in them also. So like mysteries, procedural, like thrillers, kind of stuff like that. I'd be interested in reading more of those. We have a few, but I don't know, they're just not things that I gravitate to normally. Meeting your favorite author or meeting your favorite character. I mean, I think I would want to meet my favorite character just because that's not, like, the author will always be out there, but like if I have to choose between the two, I would rather meet my favorite character because, like, one, they're fictional, so that can kind of have them be whatever I need them to be in terms of like how I imagine them, because let's be honest, people interpret characters differently, and so hopefully they would be how I imagine them. And it wouldn't be weird, it would be like we were friends. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, if that would be the situation. So I would say favorite character. My favorite item related to a book. Like my favorite thing that I've received that's related to a book? I don't know. I've gotten some cool stuff in book boxes over the last couple of years. I don't know that there's one item that I like value more than I value any other ones. But yeah, I don't know. I would say like the candles. I really like getting candles just because I can use them. Not that I have. I've got like 3 sitting on this bookshelf that I've never opened because they're from series that I love, and so I don't really want to burn them, but I guess I should just do it anyway. We'll see. Unplugged Book Box had some really great usable items, and I love usable items because then they don't sit on my bookshelf forever and just clutter things up, which, like, this stuff is pretty, but a lot of the times I get it from fandoms that I don't really care about, and so I don't really need them sitting on my bookshelf forever, which I will probably have a big D stash either on like Mercari or a buy sell trade group on Facebook or something for the stuff that I don't need anymore, just so that, I mean, I don't have to keep them around forever. But yeah, I guess usable items, that's my answer. Why did you start Booktube? Well, this is my quarantine baby because May of 2020, I had been watching Booktube for probably 6 months at that time, and like, okay, we were a couple of months into quarantine. I had a lot of spare time on my hands because I was spending half the week working from home, so I just filmed a video one day. Well, I went back and forth for a while, and honestly, John encouraged me to a lot just to try it because what was it going to hurt? And so I filmed a video and I posted it, and here we are today with 500 subscribers. So, I mean, it's, you know, there are more successful booktube channels out there, but I enjoy what I do. I enjoy talking about books with all of you guys. So, yeah, that's pretty much what it was. I had tried the blog thing. I wasn't great at the blog thing, and this is just easier for me to get my thoughts out. So I really enjoy talking about books with all of you. The book that has been sitting on your TBR shelf for more than a year. Y'all, I have an entire separate shelf in our bedroom that is a TBR shelf, and there are a lot of them that have been on there for more than a year. There's just too many books and not enough time. I can't even pick one out specifically. The one that I would have said was The Haunting of Hill House, but I did finally read that because that was a challenge, like, that I lost last year. And that was my punishment, but I finally read it, so I can't say that anymore. I guess Rhythm of War came out around this time last year, so that's probably on the list too. Yeah, I don't know. There's a whole shelf. We'll just leave it at that. I don't know what this question means. It says, planning to receive book recommendations by your booktube friends. Like, am I planning to receive book recommendations? I'm not planning any, but I will take them. Am I planning to read any book recommendations by my booktube friends? I would like to say yes, but again, you know what happens when I set a TBR for myself. I generally don't read it, so we will see. I've done a couple of buddy reads, and they've gone successfully, so yes, I guess. What is a genre that you will never get bored of? Romance. Romance is something that I just fall back into very easily. When I was in college and I stopped reading any physical books whatsoever, I was still reading a lot of ebooks, and it was all romance. I pretty much went like 6 or 7 years of my life and exclusively read romance. Once I got back into booktube, a little bit before that, I started branching back out into fantasy and sci-fi again, which were my first loves when I started reading. But romance is something that, like I said before, when I get into a reading slump, that's just one thing that I can always fall back into and know that I won't be bored. At what age did I start reading? I don't really have a set age. I have been reading for as long as I can remember. My parents said that they read to me from when I was really, really, really small. My sister's first book that she remembers reading to me was The Foot Book by Dr. Seuss. So I don't, like, I've been reading chapter books for as early as I can pick them up. I've been reading like 600-700 page fantasy novels probably a little bit earlier than I should have been reading a lot of adult fantasy, but yeah, I don't really have a set day that I remember starting reading. What fantasy book would I want to live in the most? I already said Tortall. It's not a specific book in that series. I just would love to live in that world. What is my comfort read? Pretty much anything on this shelf right behind me. I love going back to old favorites that I have read, especially the Tamara Pierce books that have been my favorites since I was really, really little. I love diving back into the Iron Druid world just because I know what to expect out of it and stuff like that. Yeah, I guess old favorites that I like, I don't know, that I've read for a long time, if that makes any sense. What book disappointed me the most this year? Is there a book that I hated more than... Well, there was a book that I hated a lot, and it was called How to Be a Badass Vigilante, I think. Or How to Be a Badass Witch. I don't remember what the name of it was. I had a rant review on that, so you can go check that out if you like. But I don't know that it was my biggest disappointment, because I don't know that I was really expecting a lot out of it. I just really, really hated it. What book surprised me the most this year was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, because I had liked The Martian. I had liked it a lot. I had finished it just in time for the movie to come out, and so I dragged John to go and watch that movie with me, but I don't think I was expecting to love Project Hail Mary as much as I did, and it is definitely one of my favorite books of all time. What was my favorite childhood book? I had several. Ones that stand out to me, like I said, The Foot Book by Dr. Seuss is one that everybody tells me that I had to have people read to me incessantly when I was little. Harry Potter is one of the first things that got me into fantasy. It's just a fact. Tamara Pierce, I started reading at a very, very early age, and I loved everything that she wrote. This is a controversial opinion, but also the Sword of Truth books by Terry Goodkind. Listen, I had read them before I knew what else was out there in the fantasy genre, so I read the entire thing, and I enjoyed it. It's a good entry into the fantasy genre. It's maybe not enough for some, like, highbrow fantasy readers out there, but I am a fan because I grew up reading them. If you could reread one book again for the first time, what would it be? Like I said before, like anything in the Tortall universe. And if you were stranded on a desert island, which 5 books would you take with you? Ooh, I don't know the answer to this. I mean, I feel like I would want to take bigger books with me, right? Because, like, they would occupy me for longer, but, like, or would I just want to revisit my favorite books all the time? This is hard. I don't know. Okay. I would say The Realms of the Gods by Tamara Pierce, because that's probably one of my favorite conclusions to any of her series. Words of Radiance, I think, because one, it's very lengthy and it would eat up a lot of time if I'm on a deserted island. And that was my favorite book in the Stormlight Archive so far. Probably the first book in the Iron Druid Chronicles, I guess, because it's the first one and I liked it a lot. That's 3. The first book in the Seven Realms series by Cinda Williams-Chima, because that's the introduction into that, and I really liked it. Although the 4th one is my favorite, so I take the 4th one. I would take The Crimson Crown, and the third Becca Cooper book, because I liked that a lot too. Mastiff, I think it is. Yeah, Mastiff. Okay. The most popular book that you don't think deserves the hype. A lot of people know that I don't like the Cruel Prince series. Well, I can't really say I don't like the series. I don't like the first book, The Cruel Prince. So I don't think that that really deserves the hype that it gets. I don't understand that relationship at all. But, you know, to each their own. What else? There was another one. The Raven Boys. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't really like it. Maggie Stiefvater's writing and I just don't really mesh. Nevernight. I read Nevernight last year and it was okay, but I didn't love it. Like, I didn't fall in love with it like a lot of other people did. I've had God's Grave sitting on my shelf for a very long time, and I just don't care enough to pick it up, and I'm very seriously contemplating just donating the series or selling it, just because I don't foresee myself ever doing that, or, like, moving on, so we'll see, but I didn't really see the hype for Nevernight. Who's your favorite fictional character? Again, Dane from the Immortals series, the Immortals Quartet. Well, no, that was the one that I relate the most with, but she's also definitely one of my favorite. Thanks, Ember. She's also definitely one of my favorite characters in general. Kaladin, I like Kaladin from Stormlight a lot. Yeah, I think that pretty much just settles it there. What time do you think is the best to read? I am a nighttime reader. I'm also like a morning reader. I'm an afternoon reader. I'm a reader whenever I get the time to read, just because I have my Kindle app on my phone and I can. But I think I do my most productive reading at night, just because I can just lay down. It's how I wind down before I fall asleep. So I am more of a nighttime reader than anything else. Does the cover influence whether you read the book or not? Whether I read the book at all? Less so. Whether I buy the book? Sometimes, yeah. I'm not just a purely cover buyer. Like, I'm not going to see a book and be like, oh, I need to have it, and then buy it because it's pretty. I will look at the plot and, you know, see if I would actually care to read it at some point. But it does influence it. Like, if it catches my eye and then I pick it up and read the back of it, then I might end up buying it, but other than that, no. How do you feel about book to movie adaptations? I am not very picky about my book to movie adaptations. I tend to see the good in them because it's at least bringing attention to something that I presumably have enjoyed, otherwise why would I care, right? Like, John hates the Harry Potter adaptations. I grew up watching all of them and reading the books, and I enjoyed both of them in different ways. The same cannot be said for the Aragon movie. That sucks, don't watch it. But most of the time, like, I can see them as two separate forms of media and appreciate them that way. If you could read from one author only for the rest of your life, who would it be and why? Okay. The answer that I'm giving here is purely based on logic, okay? And it's Brandon Sanderson, and that's because the man is not only so varied that it would keep you on your toes because you would get so many different things, but he's a machine. He puts out like 2 or 3 books a year in each of those different series. So, like, if you're only reading that one author, at least you're constantly getting content. Like, what if I picked Patrick Rothfuss? I'd have been sitting there waiting for like 10 years. Is it more than 10 years? Because I feel so bad for you guys. Like, I have The Name of the Wind somewhere, but I can't pick it up. I can't bring myself to actually pick it up and read it because I don't want to get hooked on that series and then be stuck there waiting for the next one to come out who knows when. So yeah, Patrick Rothfuss is not my answer. But Brandon Sanderson, I think, would be my best bet because he's a machine. And I really like his books. So, I mean, you know, you can't really go wrong there. Okay, so that was all of the Twitter questions. I got some questions on Instagram as well. Let's see. Question number 1 on Instagram is, what made you decide to plunge into the booktube world? I did kind of already talk about that earlier, so I'm not going to answer it again. Do you just sit and stare at your shelves because they're beautiful? Sometimes, yeah. I'm pretty proud of them. We made them ourselves, and I mean, there's 5. I know you guys don't always get to see all of the bookshelves that I have behind me, but I made them, and I love them, and yeah, I constantly, honestly, if I'm being perfectly honest here, a lot of the time I do sit and stare at them, but it's mostly to think about how I would rearrange them, because this was just something that I threw up there without much forethought about a year ago. So I do want to rearrange them. I just don't have the energy to do it because that is a huge undertaking. But a lot of times, yes, I do kind of just sit and stare at them. And I've got my fairy lights, and our family room is very atmospheric if you just throw the fairy lights on and you're up here watching a movie or a TV show. So yeah, I like to look at them. What's the best book that you found because you were on Booktube? I hate that I'm going to be this person, but it is probably Sanderson. Guys, I don't want to be this big Sanderson person all the time, but like I am a big fan. I am a sellout to the Sanderson world because I had heard his name before. I read The Wheel of Time when I was in like middle school, high school. I think I gave up around like book 5 or so. Like, isn't that the beginning of the slog? Somewhere around there. That's when I gave up reading The Wheel of Time. I'm planning on plunging back into it. That's beside the point. When I was reading it, or shortly after I had stopped reading it, was when Robert Jordan had passed away and Brandon Sanderson had taken over, and that was probably the first time I had ever heard his name. But other than that, I had no idea about like what he was doing in the fantasy world, because like I said, I was reading a lot of just romance for so long. I was in college, I was not paying attention to reading for fun very much. So when I got into Booktube, so many people were talking about Stormlight and Mistborn, and I was trying to get back into adult fantasy, and that is the dive that I took, and here I am now, a big Cosmere fan. It is what it is. Everything else, like, I had pretty much read all of my favorites anyway. I had pretty much read before I entered into Booktube, but those are definitely very dear to my heart now. What is my favorite thing about Booktubing? Everybody says the community, but it really is. It is the community. And finding other people that like to read as much as you do and like to read the same things that you do. For me, I don't have many people that I can talk about that kind of stuff to in my life. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to have married somebody that shares my interests, so there's that. But like outside of him, who is forced to talk about it with me because he lives in a house with me, I don't really have many people that like to talk about the same things as I do. I have a lot of readers in my family, but yeah, I just like talking to everybody on Booktube. And honestly, the thing about making videos is, even if you guys aren't watching it, at least I'm getting my thoughts out there, and I am, you know, working out my feelings on the books that I have read. So if my video even gets 0 views, at least I am working through my feelings on it. It's like a form of therapy, I think you could say. What is my least favorite thing about Booktube? I generally feel like I cannot come onto my camera without a semblance of makeup being done. Listen, I know it's light, I know it doesn't look like there's much going on, but there is stuff here to make me not look like an absolute troll on the internet. And having to, even if it's in my head, but having to do that before I come onto camera, sometimes the prospect of it is just exhausting, and it makes me not want to film. A lot of times I'll just push myself into doing that anyway, but then the worst thing is I'm not a fan of editing. Like, I don't like editing. It's time consuming, and it's just, I don't know, it's not my favorite. If I could hire it out to somebody without it costing an absurd amount of money, because their work would be deserved of a lot of cash, I would do so, because the thought of editing videos after I have gone to the trouble of filming them, I'm not a fan. What is my favorite video that I have made so far? Oh, I don't know. I think my favorite one, the quality wasn't great because I was still working out my lighting situation here and my camera situation here, but I loved the video that I made last year that was, if you like this TV show, you might like this book. I really want to do another one, probably sometime soon. We'll see if I get around to that or not, but I did love the video. I love the comparisons I made in that video. It's not one of my better performing ones, but it is the one that I loved making the most. Okay, and then the last question that I got on my YouTube, like my community tab, was my favorite book cover on my shelf, and again, I talked about that. I love the ink and sigil cover, and I love the Crescent City cover so much. I have a lot of really pretty covers on my shelves though, especially since I've been subscribing to Fairy Loot lately, and their editions are just absolutely gorgeous. That is it. We finished all of the questions that I received for my Q&A video. It has been like 45 minutes of me talking at this point. I am pretty tired of hearing my own voice, so you guys probably are too, so I'm going to wrap this up here. Again, I just want to thank everybody so much for 500 subscribers. You guys don't know how much it means to me that you will just sit here and listen to me ramble about the books that I like and the books that I'm reading. It's crazy to me that there are 500 of you that are subbed to this channel, so I appreciate all of you. Again, anything that I discussed book-wise that needs to be mentioned, I will throw down in my description box down below. Down there you will also find an affiliate link to Book of the Month, as well as links to my Goodreads, my Twitter, and my Instagram in case you want to follow me on any of those. Other than that, that is it for me today, guys, so I will talk to you in my next video. Bye!